I went to my favorite country-themed bar and restaurant. I found a table in the back and ordered a sandwich, fries, and a beer. I sat and watched TV, which was playing a show about country music on PBS. They talked about old country music stars, many of whom have died. Some are still alive, though. The show had a sad feeling as they talked about the lives of these famous musicians. I realized that many of them grew up poor and didn't have much. As I ate my food, I saw my good friend Bob come in with Olivia. It made me feel emotional, so I thought Olivia was my girlfriend. I asked her out for tonight, but she said she already had plans of friends and suggested we go out tomorrow instead. We've been dating for 6 months and spent almost every weekend together. I really liked her, and she said she felt the same about me. We even talked about maybe getting engaged someday, but we decided to wait a bit longer since we were already in a good relationship. After the TV show ended, someone played Crazy by Patsy Cline on the jukebox. The lyrics made me think about my situation. I knew you'd love me as long as you wanted, and then someday you'd leave me for somebody new. It made me wonder if Bob was that somebody new for Olivia. Bob knew I had feelings for Olivia, but it didn't seem to matter to him. I kept listening to the song, and as they played the part about a couple, the lyrics hit hard. Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying. And I'm crazy for loving you. I stood up and went over to Bob and Olivia. Bob looked at me and said angrily, "Shut your mouth, Charlie. If we meet again, one of us will end up in the hospital for a long time." Then he turned to Olivia and said, "I'm really disappointed in you. It's clear we're over. You've shown your true colors." I left the bar. The next day, my phone kept ringing, and it was Olivia calling repeatedly, but I didn't feel like talking to her. Later, Bob called, and I answered angrily. "What do you want?" "Charlie, I'm really sorry. I've always liked Olivia, and while we were talking at work, I asked her out, and she said yes. Don't lie, she was mine, but you asked her out anyway. How many times have you been with her?" "It's just." "How many times, Bob? If you lie, I'll be on your case." "We've been together 3 times, Charlie. We started having feelings for each other. I'm sorry." I confronted Bob about cheating on Alice, telling him she deserves better. I made it clear I never wanted to see him again. And as for Olivia and him, they could have each other. I hung up and then received a call from Olivia. I decided to answer. "What's going on, Olivia?" "I'm sorry. Bob asked me out a few times, and I went out with him once. It didn't mean anything." I called Olivia out for lying about only going out with Bob once. I suspected they were together more than that and accused them of being motivated by money, saying they deserved each other. I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with them and felt sorry for Alice. Growing up in Kentucky with 8 siblings, I was the oldest and played high school football. I got a scholarship to a college in Ohio as a senior. At 6'3" and 260 pounds, I was an offensive lineman. My parents couldn't afford college, so I took the scholarship. I aimed to be a mechanical engineer because I enjoyed hands-on work. I used to be reserved but had a soft spot for girls, thanks to growing up with sisters. My mom taught me to treat girls how I'd want my sisters treated. I became friends with a guy named Bob who was outgoing and intelligent, although not into sports like me. He mentioned having family money and was studying business management, hoping for an inheritance in the future. When I wasn't busy with football, Bob and I would hang out. He was good with girls, and we went to many parties where there were plenty of women. I was more reserved, but thanks to Bob's social skills, I found myself talking to girls I might not have approached otherwise. After college, I stayed in Ohio and got a job as a mechanical engineer at Ford Motor Company. The pay was good, so I rented a small apartment near the plant and bought a new pickup truck. I made it a point to send my parents $500 each month to help out. My dad was a coal miner, and our family was close-knit. Meanwhile, Bob also found a job at a warehouse in the same city as the Ford plant. Bob ended up working as a supplier at our workplace and later became the warehouse manager. He introduced me to his girlfriend, Alice, who was in charge of inventory control. I was really impressed by Alice and could have easily fallen for her. However, Bob and I had an unspoken agreement not to date each other's girlfriends. It was tough, but I stuck to that rule. I did go out with a couple of women from our workplace, but just as friends. I couldn't join Bob and Alice on double dates because being around Alice stirred up feelings in me, even though she was always kind to me. Bob invited me to their company's Christmas party since they were one of our suppliers, and I thought it would be fun to go. At the party, I met a beautiful woman named Olivia. She was curvy and dressed in a more revealing way than Alice. Olivia told me she worked as a secretary for a higher-up at Bob and Alice's company. We hit it off, spent the whole night dancing, and even went out with Bob and Alice for New Year's Eve. Alice mentioned she was happy for me finding someone, but her words felt insincere. I took Olivia to my apartment and we spent the night together. The next morning, Olivia seemed surprised by my modest living situation. I explained that I had just started my job and sent money home to help my family. I told her that while I might focus on material things someday, it wasn't a priority for me right now. Olivia brought up Bob's wealthy family and asked if it was true, knowing he was my close friend. I confirmed it and mentioned that they paid for his education. Our relationship continued and we spent almost every weekend together. My feelings for her grew deeper, and she reciprocated those feelings. We enjoyed various activities together, including intimate moments that I enjoyed. However, Olivia's focus on material things and her flirtatious behavior started bothering me. I tried to reassure her that we could build a good life together. But during double dates with Bob and Alice, things felt uneasy. There was a tension between us that I couldn't quite understand. Olivia and I had been dating for about 6 months. We talked about our future, including the possibility of getting engaged eventually. Olivia believed we didn't need to rush into decisions. During a visit to a county fair, I bought her a friendship ring from a budget jewelry stand. I explained that it symbolized that she was mine until she felt ready for an engagement. She smiled when she put it on. On another note, I had been going to the gym after work about 3 times a week. I managed to lose some weight and felt good about my appearance, weighing in at 230 pounds. Then came the moment at the country bar and grill. Seeing my girlfriend and best friend kissing really hurt. After confronting them and having a conversation, I cut ties with both of them. Even though I was angry, I felt sorry for Alice. Alice reached out to me 2 weeks after everything went down with Olivia and Bob. She apologized and mentioned that she had suspicions about Olivia, but never expected her to be involved with both Bob and her boss, Brad. I shared that I also found out about Olivia and Bob, which led me to end things with both of them. Alice then told me about Olivia's lunch meetings with Brad, indicating there might have been more to their relationship. I thanked Alice for reaching out and expressed that she's one of my closest friends. I suggested we catch up sometime. "I'd like that, Charlie. It's nice to talk to you." After our conversation, I wasn't sure if I felt better or worse. A few weeks went by, and one evening while I was at the grocery store, I ran into Alice. "Hi, Charlie. Good to see you. How have you been?" "Pretty good. What about you? Have you started dating again?" She smiled and said, "I've turned down a few dates because I'm interested in someone special. I don't want to mess things up if he asks me out." "Oh, I was actually going to ask if you'd like to." "Yes, I'd love to go out with you. You're the one I was hoping would ask. So when and where should we meet? I need to know what to wear." I was thinking about Saturday going to my favorite country bar and grill. We said goodbye, and I confirmed that I'd pick her up at 6. When I got to her place, she was dressed in a Western style. Jeans, a vest, a cowgirl hat, and boots. She looked great. I opened the truck door, and she got in. Saturdays at the bar featured a country band and singer. We got a table and ordered some beers. The band wouldn't start for another hour, so we had time to talk. I was surprised to learn that she was originally from Kentucky, just a county over from where I grew up. She went to college there, got a job, and eventually ended up working at the supply plant in Ohio. We ordered our food. I chose a double bacon cheeseburger with fries, and she picked a Reuben sandwich. We shared the fries, and it felt good to catch up. She asked if this was the same bar where I saw Bob and Olivia. I confirmed it but said I wasn't going to let them ruin my favorite spot. She just smiled at that. When the band started playing, we danced. They began with slow songs to get couples on the dance floor, then switched to faster tunes. I mentioned to Alice that I preferred slow dances but enjoyed watching the others dance too. The band played some Roy Orbison and Loretta Lynn songs, which I liked. Alice and I danced to the slow ones. The announcer called the ladies up for line dancing, and a few guys joined in too. "Why don't you join the line dancing?" I playfully suggested to Alice. "You just want to check out my moves," she teased back, smiling as she joined the other women in line. The dancing began, and I couldn't help but watch Alice. She caught my eye and gave her hips a little shake. I grinned and even clapped for her when the song ended. She came over with a smile, and I leaned in for a kiss. Pulling back, I said, "I'm sorry." "No need to be sorry," she replied, kissing me again. We had a great time dancing and having a few beers. The evening passed quickly, and they announced the last song. I held Alice close as we swayed to the music. When the song ended, I kissed her goodbye and dropped her off at her place. I asked if she wanted to go out again the next Saturday. I suggested we could go to Cedar Point, a big amusement park in Ohio. She happily agreed, and we exchanged goodnight kisses. I didn't want to rush things on our first date, but I felt really good all week. On Friday, I called Alice to confirm our plans for Saturday. She said she had heard of the park but hadn't been there before. On Saturday morning, I picked Alice up and we headed to Cedar Point. During the drive, we talked about whether she had told Bob or Olivia about us dating. She said she hadn't mentioned it to either of them. We had a great time at the amusement park, going on roller coasters and trying different rides. We also caught some shows at the park. On our way back, we decided to have dinner at a Texas Roadhouse. By the time we got home, we were both pretty tired. Alice lived with her roommate Joan, who was friendly and worked at a retail store. Alice liked having Joan around. They were like family and had a close relationship. I told Alice I'd be away next weekend but wanted to see her the following week. She said to call her when I got back. After a kiss, I told her I cared about her. She said she felt the same way. When I got home, I called her right away and invited her to a special dinner event hosted by my boss at the Hilton Hotel. I mentioned I booked a room because of the expected drinking and that I'd understand if she didn't want to come. Alice was excited about the invitation. "Charlie, I'd love to go with you. We don't need separate beds, you know. I'm starting to fall for you. Just promise to be honest and not lead me on. I would never want to hurt you, and I'll make sure nobody else does either. Alice, could we use your car? I don't want to show up at a fancy event in my truck. We can use my car, and I'll let Joan know I won't be home that night." I parked my truck at her place, and we used her car for the event. We arrived early to get ready at the hotel. During the ride, Alice mentioned she was thinking of finding a new job because seeing Bob and Olivia regularly made her uncomfortable. She even shared a rumor that Olivia might be pregnant. For the party, I got dressed in the bathroom, wearing a tuxedo. When I came out, Alice looked stunning in a form-fitting blue dress that showed off her figure, with her hair flowing down to her shoulders. She had an elegant and captivating presence. "You look absolutely gorgeous. I might forget about the party itself," I joked. Alice teased back, "Oh no, you don't." I didn't dress up just to change again. With a smile, and we went downstairs to the party. When we arrived, my boss and his wife welcomed us warmly. He introduced us to his wife, and we chatted for a bit before they moved on. I noticed my boss stealing glances at Alice. I introduced her to people I knew, and she received many compliments. We got some drinks and found a table with appetizers, and dinner was planned for later. Alice recognized a couple of women she knew from her role in inventory control. I approached Mary, the head of human resources, and started a conversation. "Mary, are there any job openings in inventory control or the supply chain?" "As a matter of fact, there is. Janice is retiring next month, and I've been tasked with finding her replacement. Do you have anyone in mind?" "Actually, my date, Alice, whom you've met, is looking for a new job opportunity. She currently works in inventory control. She likes her job, but is ready for a change. Tell her to come see me on Monday, and I'll set up an interview for her. She's quite impressive." "Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate your help," I replied gratefully. "I'm sure you do," Mary chuckled. The party was a lot of fun. I danced with a few of the wives of the employees, and Alice had her turn dancing with their husbands. But most of the time, we were dancing together. The dinner was amazing, with options like roast beef, chicken, or shrimp, and all the trimmings. After a few more drinks, we said our goodbyes and went up to our hotel room. "Alice, are you sure about this? I don't want you to think I'm trying to take advantage of you," I said, wanting to be sure she was comfortable. "Charlie, stop overthinking and just be with me," Alice replied, helping herself out of her dress. We hung it up neatly with my tuxedo, then pulled down the covers on the bed. I turned off the lights, and well, you can guess what happened next. We cuddled up and fell asleep together, and the last thing I heard before drifting off was, "I love you, Charlie." I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee. Alice had already showered, dressed, and made us each a cup. "Morning, Charlie. Did you sleep well?" "It's been a while," I admitted. After a quick shower and coffee, we headed down to the dining room for breakfast with the other employees, all of whom seemed to be in good spirits. "Looks like we're becoming a known couple," I commented to Alice. Mary, the HR person, stopped by our table as we were leaving and said to Alice, "See you Monday," with a smile before walking off. "What was that about?" Alice asked. "I forgot to tell you that you have an interview with Mary on Monday at Ford," I said, smiling. "You mentioned thinking about a job change." Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, "Charlie, I hope this isn't a dream. I love you so much." We talked as we headed back home. "Alice, I don't want to rush things, but in 2 weeks, I'm visiting my parents in Kentucky. I'd love for you to come with me. I leave on Friday evening and come back on Sunday. We can also visit your parents if you want." "I'd love to go, but my parents are traditional and we might not share a bed." "I'm sure everything will work out," I reassured her. Music. Update. We started our trip to Kentucky. Alice told me the latest rumor about Bob and Olivia planning to get married next month because Olivia is visibly pregnant. I think Olivia believes she's marrying into wealth, but she'll soon find out it's not Bob who's wealthy, but his parents. Bob might live a lavish lifestyle, but it's mostly based on debt, I explained to Alice. When we arrived at my parents' home, we were welcomed by a spacious old farmhouse with plenty of bedrooms and bathrooms. My siblings who still lived there came out to greet us, followed by Mom and Dad. I embraced everyone and introduced Alice, who received warm hugs from them all. We spent a couple of hours chatting, and I could see that my family already adored Alice. While she was looking at the photos on the wall, she focused on one of me in my football uniform from my younger days, and I noticed tears in her eyes. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I asked her. "Do you remember that time when you were playing football at Grayling during an away game? After the match, you walked through the tunnel, and there were two guys trying to drag a girl in a yellow sweater into the tunnel. You confronted one of the guys, threw him down, and then tackled the other. You warned them that if they ever bothered the girl again, you'd come back to finish what you started. Then you walked away into the locker room." "That's incredible. I never knew it was you," I exclaimed, still processing the revelation. I'm glad I could help back then. Alice's story left me speechless, and her kiss felt like a bridge connecting our past and present. It was a strange twist of fate that brought us together again through Bob's introduction. "I'm grateful for Bob's introduction too," I said with a smile, feeling a deeper connection with Alice than ever before. Alice and I settled into our sleeping arrangements at my parents' house, with her in the guest room and me in the basement. Later in the night, around 1 a.m, Alice joined me. We shared a quiet, intimate moment despite the circumstances, but it was a bit challenging, and she returned to her room about an hour later. The next day, we visited Alice's family. I hadn't realized they were well off until then. Alice had 2 younger sisters who were quite attractive, and they all lived in a lovely house. During the visit, Sandy, one of Alice's sisters, complimented me, saying I looked handsome. Inside, we chatted for a while, and Alice's father, Hank, asked me about my job and background. Like any caring father, he had his concerns about his daughter and wanted to make sure she was in good hands. "Mr. Carter, I'd like to have a serious talk with you about your daughter. I'm here to ask for your blessing to marry Alice." Alice seemed surprised and teary-eyed as she looked at me. We hadn't discussed this beforehand. Even though we haven't been together for a long time, our love is strong, and we believe we can build a great life together through marriage. "Charlie, I appreciate that you came to talk to me, although it wasn't necessary. You should know by now that Alice follows her heart." "Alice, do you love Charlie?" "Yes, Daddy, I truly do with all my heart." "Then you have my blessing, on one condition. You two must get married here in Kentucky so your mom and I can give you a proper wedding. Oh, and we'll cover the expenses." I surprised everyone by pulling out an engagement ring from my pocket, dropping down on one knee, and asking Alice to marry me. She said yes, kissed me, then rushed to hug her dad and embrace her mom, who was shedding tears of joy. We all stood up and had a wonderful chicken dinner together. Later, back at my parents' house, we told the Carters that we'd keep them updated about our plans. When we shared our engagement news with Mom and Dad, they were overjoyed. Many of my nearby relatives were coming over for a barbecue. Dad took charge of the grill, while Mom handled the rest of the meal. Alice offered to help in the kitchen, mentioning she enjoyed cooking too. All my relatives came by to greet us and get to know Alice. She was the first woman I brought home to meet the family, and they all agreed she was a keeper and encouraged me to make her happy. After a day filled with celebration and farewells to our relatives, we promised to update them about our wedding plans. Just before bedtime, Alice mentioned that my mom had warned her about a shoe obstacle on the stairs. It turned out she accidentally kicked a pair of shoes, which tumbled down the stairs. Alice apologized, but Mom reassured her, reminiscing about her own youthful energy that led to having many children. Later, Alice came downstairs again, and we shared a quiet and intimate moment together. Despite trying to keep quiet, things got a bit loud. She returned upstairs close to 5 in the morning. After a night of closeness, we fell asleep. In the morning, Mom and Alice exchanged knowing smiles. We all enjoyed a hearty country breakfast before saying our goodbyes with hugs and kisses. Then we made our way back home. On Monday, Alice had her interview with the HR department. By Tuesday, Mary called her with the good news that she got the job and could give her 2-week notice. Alice excitedly shared the news with me, but I was already aware. We decided to celebrate by going out for dinner at my favorite country bar that evening. At the restaurant, we both ordered steak dinners. Alice mentioned that Bob and Olivia were on vacation that week and planned to get married in Las Vegas soon. She said it was the best 2 weeks at work since she didn't have to deal with them. She also mentioned that her coworkers were sad to see her go but understood she was moving on to a better opportunity. Securing a job at Ford meant having one of the highest paying jobs in the area. Alice felt lucky to have gotten the interview and the job offer. She had worked hard for it. Alice chose to keep our dating and engagement private from others. She shared that before leaving her job, she left an anonymous note on Bob's desk. The note suggested that he consider a DNA test once the baby was born due to his wife's frequent lunches with her boss. The note ended with congratulations, but she didn't sign it, leaving it mysterious. Throughout her time at work, Alice always wore a happy smile. When guys asked her out, she proudly showed off her engagement ring and made it clear that she was committed to me. They understood and respected our relationship boundaries. Alice mentioned that Joan was helping her with the wedding preparations, acting like a supportive guardian. Joan, who had a married daughter, became a close friend of Alice's, and they shared expenses as roommates. I made sure to visit a couple of times each week to assist with anything they needed. I contacted my mom for a list of relatives and friends to invite from our side of the family. She went above and beyond, purchasing invitations and handling the invites for us. I gave Alice our wedding date, set for 4 months ahead. She told her mom about it, and her parents took charge of finding a church and a big place for the reception. Her mom also offered to send invites to their relatives. With her dad's business connections, they had many options. Even though I felt a bit nervous, I was doing the least in terms of planning. I talked to some coworkers about the wedding, mentioning it would be in Kentucky. Surprisingly, many said they'd like to come, thanks to Joan's connections at the retail store. Alice arranged for a dressmaker for her wedding gown, and Joan confirmed her attendance along with her daughter. Sophie, Alice's mother, called to say she had booked a caterer and a talented band. Everything seemed to be falling into place, but she needed a head count later on. I expressed my concern to Alice about the elaborate preparations and the cost. She explained that it was her parents' dream for a grand wedding, not hers, and that her sisters would have similar weddings. I was surprised and asked why she hadn't mentioned her wealthy background before. "I didn't tell you about my family's money because I wanted you to like me for who I am," she said. "I only told Joan about it, not even Bob knows. Does this change how you feel about me?" "No, I care about you for who you are, not because of money. But if you want, we can sign a prenuptial agreement." "We don't need a prenup. I think we'll be together forever. Right now, I don't have much money, maybe in the future through inheritance, but not now. I'll have you, my loving husband, to take care of me." Alice planned her wedding party lineup carefully. Her father would walk her down the aisle, her older sister would be the maid of honor, and her younger sister would also be a bridesmaid. She asked my 2 married sisters to be bridesmaids too. My brothers-in-law would be my groomsmen, and her sisters would be paired with my single brothers. Surprisingly, my younger brother would be my best man, and my niece and nephew were chosen as the flower girl and ring bearer. It was becoming a big family event, and Alice was doing great in her new job. Everyone at work liked her a lot. We faced a problem because Alice hadn't been working long enough to get vacation days. We thought about going down on Friday night, getting married on Saturday, and coming back on Sunday. It would be a quick trip, but it seemed like the best option given the circumstances. Just before our wedding, the manager at work called me into his office. He mentioned he knew about our tight schedule for the wedding. I confirmed that Alice didn't have any vacation days left. He surprised me by granting Alice personal time off starting from Thursday until the following week. Additionally, he gifted us 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise for our honeymoon. I thanked him and immediately called Alice to tell her the good news. I suggested we go out for lunch as I had something important to discuss with her. While we were having lunch, Alice asked me what I wanted to talk about. I shared that Mark had told me about the personal time off he approved for her, starting from Thursday to the whole next week. He even gave us 2 tickets for a 4-day cruise as a wedding gift. I showed her the tickets, and she got emotional, shedding happy tears. With this time off, we didn't have to rush for the wedding or hurry back. Everything was falling into place. We had the rehearsal and dinner on Friday. I also checked with my dad about money, and he said he had saved all the money I sent him since we announced the wedding. I respected him a lot for that. It was the day before the wedding, and after our dinner, I kissed Alice goodnight and told her I'd see her the next day. She had already informed her mom about the number of guests coming to both the wedding and the reception, but she kept the count from me since I was already feeling nervous. I knew that all my relatives would be attending along with Alice's family and friends. The motels in both counties had been booked for months, and I hoped our guests found places to stay. The next morning, I woke up and my mom insisted on breakfast. She said I needed to eat something to calm my nerves. During breakfast, Mom mentioned that they had met Alice's parents and thought highly of them. They found the Carters to be friendly and had a good impression of me. After a good breakfast, I took a long shower and shaved, getting ready in my white tuxedo to match Alice's dress. My brothers were also dressed in black tuxedos, ready for their roles in the wedding party. We all headed to the church together. The church was a bit far in the next county, but not too far, about 20 miles away. It was a big church, able to hold over 600 people. As guests arrived, my brothers and I helped them find seats, even though they said I didn't need to. I just wanted to be helpful. Joan and her daughter arrived, and I directed them to sit with Alice's family. I saw relatives I hadn't seen in years and was happy to see some coworkers too. My boss Mark and his wife even flew in for the wedding. Then I was told to go to the front of the church because Alice had arrived in her limo, and tradition said I shouldn't see her before the ceremony. I had a quick chat with my parents before the music started playing on the organ. Soon, an announcement was made for everyone to take their seats as the wedding was starting. Each wedding has its own special moments. I stood at the front beside the minister as the ceremony began. Sandy was the first to walk down the aisle with my brother, looking great together. They took their places at the front. Then came Marie, escorted by my other single brother. After that, my married brothers walked down with their wives. Finally, my nephew came down as the ring bearer, and I held the wedding ring ready in my pocket. 2 men rolled out a white cloth, and my niece walked down the aisle, scattering rose petals. The music changed, signaling everyone to stand up. The wedding march started, and Alice, escorted by her proud father, began walking down the aisle. She looked stunning, like an angel. Tears streamed down my face as I watched her approach. The minister asked, "Who presents this woman to this man?" "Her mother and I," her father replied. We exchanged our vows, and I slipped the ring onto her finger. Finally, I kissed the bride, following the minister's cue. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Charles Jones," the minister announced. After the wedding ceremony, we stood at the church door with our wedding party, thanking everyone who came. It took a while for the church to empty out as people left for the reception hall. At the hall, drinks and appetizers awaited everyone. A band played music, though dancing hadn't started yet. Tables were set up all around. When we entered, everyone stood and cheered for us. Mr. Carter spoke briefly, and then the food was served. Tables were set up on both sides to ensure everyone got their meal quickly. Alice and I were served first, but we probably finished eating last because we kept pausing to kiss every few seconds. It was a joyful night at the reception, with dancing and celebrations lasting for 4 hours. Some guests even had seconds of the delicious food. Afterward, our cruise honeymoon was fantastic. Bringing my truck to the wedding was a smart move. We used a U-Haul to transport all the generous gifts we received. When we got back, we started house hunting and found a lovely 3-bedroom home with a hot tub. We spent a couple of weeks in my small apartment, but Alice felt we needed more space, and the new house was perfect for us. We left the wedding gifts at Joan's house because we weren't living there anymore. We made sure she could handle things on her own, and she said she was doing fine financially. She liked looking after Alice, but now that responsibility was shared with me. Every evening, we wrote thank you cards for the gifts we received. I think we're almost done with that now. We also have lunch together at work about 3 times a week. It's been 3 months since the wedding, and everything is going smoothly. We haven't argued, and we always talk things out when we have differences. We know that good communication is important, so we make sure to practice it. Alice got a call from her friend who works somewhere else. Olivia found out that Bob is having money problems and owes a lot of money. There's also talk that someone suggested Bob should take a DNA test when Olivia's baby is born. But they're not sure who said that. A few weeks later, Alice got another call. It turns out Bob did take the DNA test, and it showed he's not the baby's father. Can you believe that? Thanks for listening to my story. The part about the country music is real. I saw it on PBS. The end.